Sister friends, how are you doing? Right? It's a shit show now, right? With the coronavirus happening. Listen, I get it, right? We're all going through our stuff, right? Whether it's stress, anxiety, right? Unemployment, lost customers, I get it, right? So, of course, feel your shit, right? But at the same time, Womeneur Circles is all about uplifting, right? Thriving, and it's all in your mind, right? What are you going to do now with this downtime to rise, right, through this, right? But today, I have a special guest. I'm super duper excited. This is the first of many to come, right? And our special guest is mental health therapist Tammy von Nordheim, MSW. Hi, Tammy.
Hello, Sharon.
Thanks for joining us. I love your last name, by the way. Now,
Thank you.
so, sister friends, close vote, right? You guys voted for the reparenting ourselves topic, and that's what we're going to discuss today, right? Some of you submitted questions, some of you just want to listen, and that's fine. But now we're going to discuss how to untangle the shit that traumatized us in our childhood, right? And so Tammy von Nordheim, a mental health therapist and motivational speaker, Tammy challenges you to expand your mindset and embrace who you are meant to be by amplifying your inner voice that says, I can do this. All right, put my damn glasses on. Founder of Girl in the Glass, a women's empowerment group, and I Empower Me Too, a nonprofit, Tammy inspires small and large groups to find the blessings in their brokenness. Wow. Tammy is relatable and magnetic with an infectious personality as she uses her gift to engage an audience both mentally and emotionally to think differently about how everyday actions can affect your life and create manageable shifts that empower you to begin living and not just existing. Tammy is the owner of Growth and Wellness Therapy Center and has helped numerous women to embrace their humanness and to live in their truth with no apologies. All right now. Thank you, Tammy. Would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I just want to say that this whole reparenting thing has been a process because I even had to do it with myself. And I don't think it's something that you ever end. I think just being aware that there's the option to do that helps to keep you balanced throughout your the journey that you're navigating in your life. And so what we're going to share with you guys today, you can use it over and over and over. Don't ever feel like, okay, I did it once and I'm good, because you're going to have things pop up and you're going to need to do it again and continue the process. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Sharon. I'm so excited to be here talking to you.
Yes, excellent. And I generally introduce myself, but I'll skip it. You guys know who I am. I'm Sharon Beason. I'm the founder of Womeneur Circles. Okay, so listen, here's the thing, right? Before I dive into my questions, I think reparenting is something that we all need to do, right? I myself, I'm currently in therapy, right? Yes, I'm in therapy and I've been in therapy for 2 years. And surprisingly, I've learned a lot of stuff about how I am now has affected, was affected by the way I was raised, right? And so I am currently, like Tammy said, unlearning the bullshit, right? Unlearning the trauma, understanding why my mother did what she did, right? And being able to be in a space with my mother, for me, it's my mother, right? Where I can love my mother unconditionally, because I don't think I ever did. But now I'm in that space. I love the shit out of my mother, don't get me wrong, but I had a few hangups on things. And so I do see where my mother went through that trauma and it exists now, but it's all good, right? So I'm excited to discuss this. And that's a very important thing you said, Tammy. It's something that it's a process, right? And I'm still going through it. Excellent. Okay, Tammy, so my first question to you is, what is reparenting?
Well, Sharon, reparenting is essentially the act of giving yourself what you didn't receive as a child. It's the main principle of it is to offer yourself unconditional love. And it's not that, many of us didn't have parents who loved us. We did, but they loved us in the way that they knew how to love us. And in a lot of cases, these parents could have been using some reparenting for themselves, because if you dig deeper when you're talking to someone and you look at the parents' history, the parents' childhood, you'll see that they had some experiences that made them who they were as an adult. And so when they had kids, they did the best they could with what they were aware of, and just, to survive, just to get through life. And so then what we are doing, once we become adults, is we're repeating the same cycles, the same patterns, and not realizing that it's just simply a cycle. So it's up to us, when we have the blessing of understanding what reparenting is, to be able to break that cycle, to be able to stop that pattern and redirect it into something that we would have wanted to have for ourselves, especially if you have kids. If you are single, it still will help you in your relationships, with friendships, with love interests. But if you are a parent, it's especially important for you to be aware of reparenting and reparenting yourselves. And it's not to say that you had parents that were sucky. Some of us did, and some of us were just okay, and some of us may not have, but there's still certain actions, certain things that were taking place in your childhood that could have been done a little bit differently if the information was there, that could have made us a lot more balanced in who we are as an adult.
Love it. I love it. And I'm so glad you said that it does affect, even if you're not a parent, right? Because I'm not a mother, right? So it's important to understand that, yes, even though it does, there's a focus there on you as a parent, it does affect your relationships. And I've seen where it's affected mine. And guys, I just want to say also that, let me tell you, this, we're lucky now, right? Because when you look on Instagram, right, I don't know if you've noticed it, Tammy, I see a lot of posts that say we're going to break this generational curse, right? We're going to break this generational trauma. So for, everyone in a space now with everything that's happening, I really do believe we're more aware of it, right? So that's a great thing. Okay, so my second question is, Tammy, what are some of the ways that reparenting affects our well-being negatively, right?
The Let me make sure I understand the question. How does reparenting affect us negatively?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. It could affect us negatively if we're not quite clear on exactly what reparenting is and what the purpose of reparenting is for. And if you have not really had any guidance and anyone teaching you exactly how to reparent, because the way it could affect us negatively is if someone is thinking to themselves, okay, you know what? I don't want to be like my parents. I want to do things differently. But they go from one extreme to the other extreme. They don't know when to kind of find that middle ground, when to kind of slow down where they're more balanced. They just go from like far right to the far left.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, they have other newer issues that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still trying to figure out, well, what happened? But that's when it could be a negative effect.
Right. Excellent. Okay. So my third question, Tammy, is, thank you for that, is what are some of the things that we can do to push past the trauma of this cycle?
Well, some of the things that you can do to push past the trauma, first of all, would be just even being aware that you've experienced some trauma. I cannot tell you how many of my clients that I see in my office week to week, that when I ask them the question, have you ever experienced trauma? And they're like, no, because for them, trauma is like, I was in a car accident,
There you go.
or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or my sibling died, or one of my parents died, or and don't get me wrong, those are traumas, but they're thinking more of the tangible, like trauma, versus trauma when somebody might have been verbally abusive.
Mm-hmm.
That's trauma. Trauma could be as simple as you having a favorite doll as a kid, and you having a parent or a babysitter or a sibling snatch it from you, snap the head off, and toss it away and laugh. That's traumatic. And it could sit with you for years, for decades. But we don't realize, that was actually trauma, because deep inside, you don't really move past it. You kind of get stuck. And each time a piece of trauma happens to you in your life, another piece of you continues to get stuck. And the next thing you know, you're trying to, get things through a bottleneck, and it's not happening. And so we don't understand why we have these moments of despair, of depression, of anxiety. It's because throughout our childhood, as we've continued to grow into adults, we've been, getting stuck, but we're not really understanding why. So, yeah, that's one of the ways. It's just being aware that you could possibly have had trauma, and you just weren't understanding that it was labeled trauma. That's the first thing. So other things that you can do, there's actually 4 pillars of to this reparenting thing. There's lots of different things you can do to reparent. So if you don't mind, we can just jump right into
absolutely. I
what
would
are some
love
of the
that.
steps?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
What are some of the steps that you can take to reparent yourselves? And the first thing, as simple as it sounds, is just to simply breathe. You have to be able to breathe. And yes, it's a step. And the reason I say breathe is because it's easy to become overwhelmed, right? It's easy to start feeling as if, it doesn't make sense. You don't understand it. And the baseline is it's a process. So what you want to do is not try to do too much of this work at once. You want to just breathe yourself through it, pace yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. The second thing you can do is to keep one small promise to yourself every day. And when I say a small promise, it's got to be something that you can complete. It cannot it cannot be something that you normally would struggle to or have challenges to complete, because then that defeats the purpose, because then you encounter more feelings of I just can't do anything. I can't do anything right. So for example, it needs to be something that's significant. Like, for example, choose something that that is easy that for you in the situation. For example, if you know that you need to get up early every day for work, that right there could be the promise that you make to yourself. I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. every morning to go to work or to go work out. Then when you do that, celebrate it because you did it. The other thing is, for example, if you normally don't go to the gym every day, don't tell yourself, I'm going to promise myself that I'm going to go to the gym every day, because as soon as you fail to keep that promise to yourself, it regresses the work that you've been doing. So even though it seems like, okay, well, how does it do anything for me to say I'm going to get up early? I'm getting up early anyways. What it's doing is helping you to be aware of the things that you have been doing that you can do, because sometimes we dismiss that. We've experienced so much in our childhood and never being celebrated for the things that we were getting right, that we have to celebrate what we are getting right and recognize that. The third thing is tell someone you trust, other than your parents. Tell someone you trust that you're beginning this process, okay? So don't share this with your parents that you're doing this, because it's not necessary, and it could hurt their feelings, because they're going to be thinking, wait a minute, you're reparenting yourself, so what? I didn't do a good job? They'll get defensive. Then that's going to backfire and start making you doubt yourself and like, can you even do this? So just remember that your parents did the best thing they could do with their level of awareness, okay? And they'll likely become defensive if you talk to them about this. So reparenting is for you. So tell a partner, tell a friend, tell a spouse, let them know that you're working on this, because support will be helpful. The fourth thing is to use this mantra. The mantra is, what can I give myself right now? What can I give myself right now? And this is a mantra that I use often. And as children, we weren't always given what we needed. As an adult, we have the opportunity to do that. We can give ourselves permission to give ourselves what it is that we need. Of course, you have to understand what it is that you need. And so that's a process in itself. But when you're having strong emotions, just ask yourself, what can I give myself right now? And I also wanted to add, celebrate you when you show up. We don't do that enough. We don't do it enough because we fear that people are going to think we're bragging. People are going to think that we're showing off. People are going to think that we think we're better than them. But that's not the case. I mean, if you're not going to celebrate yourself, who's going to celebrate you? So do it for yourself. And that's basically, in a nutshell, the 5 steps to begin reparenting yourself. But even more than that, of course, I got to put this in there because I'm a strong believer of therapy. Even more than those 5 steps to begin the process of reparenting, find yourself a really good therapist. Find yourself a therapist that you feel like you can connect with, a therapist that you feel like is listening to you and supportive of you and also challenging you to take certain steps. You don't want someone who's just constantly yes, yes, yes. You want someone who's going to say yes, but who's also going to call you out on your bullshit when it's necessary to call you out on it. So finding yourself a good therapist and not being ashamed of it is the biggest thing that I would suggest that you do to begin your reparenting process.
Wow. Listen, sister friends, are you soaking up all these gems? Like, this was incredible. Thank you, Tammy. Seriously. And this was amazing information, very insightful, very enlightening, very informative. So, sister friends, I know you are soaking this all up, right? And so what I would like to do is just jump right into the questions that some of you have shared. And of course, you all know this is a very safe space. And I thank you all for being very transparent and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to share, right? Because although not every one of you have asked questions, I'm sure some of you, right, because there's quite a few parents in here, may very well be going through the same thing, and it's totally okay, right? Because I've said it before and I'll say it again, this space is not just all about goddamn business, right? This is a space to heal, to thrive, right? You're going to go from introvert to maybe a little extrovert, right? We're going to go from wounded to healed, right? We're going to go from not knowing shit about business to being in business. So I want you all to understand the importance of this, right? And you showing up in the world is about you and you being your best self, right? Think of showing up for yourself as you as best as you can, not just your brand, right? Not just your business, you as an overall person. And that's the goal inside Womeneur Circles, to make you a high vibing, right? All around badass, right? So thank you, Tammy, right? And, I want to touch upon a few things before I do go into your questions, right? That word trauma, right? I'm so glad you pointed that out, because for myself, even before my therapist made me aware, I was thinking trauma was just a car accident, right? Or you broke a leg or something like that. So I'm so very glad that you pointed out the context of what trauma is, because this is exactly why we don't discuss what we don't, because we don't think of it as being a big deal, but it's a big deal. If it's hurting, if it's sitting with you, it's a big deal, right? And you pointed out a very, very important thing, right? Because whether or not some of you are comfortable or not or aware to go to a therapist, what Tammy said about please take your time to find a good therapist, right? Because I was under the belief before I began therapy, and I've been in and out of therapy for years, right? It's always just a mind thing, for me, just dealing with relationships. That's why I'm in therapy, right? But now I'm in therapy more so because I got a lot of shit on my plate, right? And so I have a lot of responsibilities, and my therapist keeps me sane, right? And she has taught me so much about emotional intelligence. So don't always think it's just this big damn thing. My therapist is a good listener. So that's a very good point, Tammy, because I've been with some shitty ass therapists, but I didn't know that there were shitty ass therapists, right? And so you got to find one you vibe with. You got to find one that's not going to just yes the hell out of you. I had one that was just, we won't even get into it because I'm not even with her anymore, right? But find one that feels good to you, to your soul. Listen, women, we keep trying to shut down our intuition, but our inner voice is speaking to us, right? So don't shut it down. Find a therapist that feels good to your soul, right? So thank you, Tammy. This is some serious gems, right?
If you'd like to be a guest on Tuesdays with Tammy, please contact me at www.tammyvaughn.com.